So, one of my very few subscribers wanted my opinion on the SIG brace. Now, to me, the whole SIG brace is not an issue because I live in the communist state of New Jersey where we can't have, pistol carbines. We can't have a weapon where it's less than a 16-inch barrel, and it has a barrel shroud, or you can hold it and the magazine's in front of the gun. There's like all these stupid rules, so we can't have that. I can't enjoy the pleasure of having essentially a short barrel rifle via the SIG brace. I know I should say short, it's a pistol with a brace, but I'm saying the ATF was intelligent enough to know that that's about as close to a stock as you can get without it being a stock. And one of the main reasons that it was approved is they would have gotten they would have gotten the pantsuit off of them due to discrimination of handicapped people if they had denied approval of the brace. SIG knew this, SIG went along, went ahead with it, and they knew that people were going to shoulder this. I mean, you can shoulder a buffer tube, and there's no rules against shouldering a buffer tube. So if you're shouldering an item that can either be added to a pistol carbine or comes with the pistol carbine, the ATF regulates the actual gun. They do not regulate how you hold the gun. I think the Mac on the military arms channel, he pointed this out about how handguns are described, and handguns are described as being shot with one hand. But how many people actually shoot a handgun with one hand? They shoot handguns with two hands. So I think that a lot of the issue just comes down to the fact that, people were poking the fucking bear, and they poked the bear so much that the ATF had to respond. People should have left it alone, but what they wanted was they wanted the ATF to give them their blessing to avoid the $200 tax and have a short barrel rifle without paying the $200 tax. And the ATF knew that this was going to happen, but, gun owners were stupid, and they kept sending letters to the ATF. But that does not make that the fault of the gun owners, sending their letters to the ATF, and all the idiots who sent their letters to the ATF trying to get the ATF's blessings. That does not make the ATF opinion letter any more valid. It doesn't give the letter any sort of validity. It's an opinion. Again, the ATF cannot tell you how to hold a weapon, and their whole definition of redesign would not hold up in court. Now, here's where it gets sticky. Now, if you go and you buy a pistol carbine, and then you put the SIG brace on, and then you shoulder it, they could argue that you changed the design of the weapon by putting on the stock that you intended to shoulder. It's still a weak charge, because it's like you approve the brace, but now the only issue is whether you shoulder it or not. Right? And I'm saying it's based on an opinion. There's no laws that have been made that said, hey, you can't shoulder that. There's no law in the books that says you can't hold a gun however the hell you want to hold a gun. There's nothing that says that you can't hold it upside down, that, that you can't, go scuba diving with it. I mean, there's no laws, that say how the heck you can hold, a firearm. Now, damn, what was I going to say? I was going to go somewhere with that about the holding it. I remember what I was going to say. So if you go and you buy an actual SIG pistol carbine with the brace already on it and you shoulder it, I don't see any way that that would hold up, and the idea that you redesigned the gun would hold up in court when you bought it as is. See, that's the difference. It's like these short barreled Henry type shotguns or rifles. If you buy it like that, you can go on Bud's Guns and you can see them. They got these like looking like that gun that Arnold Schwarzenegger had in Terminator 2 when he was on the motorcycle, with the little pistol grip shotgun. You can buy one like that. Or I don't even know if they're shotguns, or I don't know if they're pistols, but or rifle calibers. Either way, I'm saying you can buy a gun like that, but you'd be looking at 10 years if you chop the buttstock down and chop the barrel down. So modifying it is you're altering the firearm. But again, if you buy it like that, they're going to have a hard time trying to prove that you redesigned the gun when all you did was shoulder it. The gun is as is. It's the same way that you bought it. You didn't change anything on it. You didn't change the stock. It came with the stock. So the idea, their whole definition of redesign, it's what's the word? Is it legally tenable? I don't know what the word is or the phrase, but that's just not going to hold up in court. I'm not a lawyer, but I know common sense, and there's several things in the legal system, and I'm not saying it always works, but there's several things that protect, the average person. Most of the laws are interpreted, not written, but interpreted, where it's based on what a reasonable person would do. Okay, what a reasonable person would believe. Okay, and regardless of the ATF's letter, you can't make up a letter and then change the English language, to benefit you. That's not going to hold up in court. Okay, so their whole concept of redesign, their whole concept of redesign would not fall along the lines of what a reasonable person would believe, because a reasonable person would not believe that buying a firearm as is and shouldering a firearm as firearms are shouldered would be illegal, regardless of whatever the ATF's claim is. That's just their opinion. They're trying to, they're like, oh shit, now people are going to avoid the $200 tax because they're going out and buying these, $125 SIG braces. But again, prior to the SIG brace, there was no law, there was no ATF anything that said you can't shoulder the buffer tube of your, pistol carbine. So, with the addition of the SIG brace, and not using it as a forearm brace, again, there's no law saying that you can't hold the firearm however you want to hold it. It does not change the design of the firearm. It does not change the classification. If that was the case, then they wouldn't be able to sell the SIG braces as they are with the SIG pistol carbines that you can buy off of Bud's Guns, or Grab a Gun, or the Diamondback. I don't even think Diamondback puts the SIG brace on there. I think SIG is the only one that puts the SIG brace on there. But I'm saying, you wouldn't be able to buy it like that. If it changed the design, the idea that it changed the design based on how you hold it, it's not going to hold up to the light of scrutiny. But the problem is this is just one big fat scare tactic where they're trying to scare the bejesus out of everybody, because let's face it, nobody wants to go to court. Nobody wants to go through all this. Nobody wants to be the guinea pig, for the whole process. So people are taking down their YouTube videos, and I don't want to be seen with shouldering the SIG brace and all this claim to fame type of crap that people are doing. I don't want to be in the spotlight. I don't want to be in the crosshairs. And somebody somewhere is going to shoulder it, at the range somewhere, and there'll be an officer there, and they may try to take it to court. I highly doubt it. That they're going to try to lock somebody up because they shouldered a SIG brace. They may try. They may say, we're going to make our point. But I'm telling you, it doesn't have any legal, legal, what do you want to call it? It doesn't have any real legal bearing in court. It's not going to hold up. Okay. I'm trying to think of another example of something where you could say, oh, well, you held it like this. It would be like saying you can buy, a switchblade or a knife, but if you reverse grip the knife, now all of a sudden the knife is illegal because you reverse grip. You were holding it illegally. See, if you did that with knives, people would look at you like you're crazy. But now that they're doing that with the SIG brace, all of a sudden everybody's like, oh my God, I can't shoulder the SIG brace. And like I said, if this is kind of like an at your own risk type of thing. And that's how people are looking at it. But I'm just saying, from a logical standpoint, from a court standpoint, which is supposed to be based in logic, and what a reasonable person would believe, in terms of the definition of redesign, it's not going to hold up in court. It's just simply not going to hold. I mean, there are more legal contracts, there are more. How do I want to put this? I don't know why I'm fumbling over my words today, but there are documents that have more legal validity to them, than this BATF letter. Now, I understand, yes, well, they're with the government, so they're in cahoots and all this other stuff. People can argue that, but I'm saying if prenuptial agreements can get thrown out because of certain technicalities and, unreasonableness, then, but you better believe that this ATF letter can also be thrown out. It's just, again, it has to go into court, which means somebody has to be the guinea pig. And obviously, I mean, whoever's the guinea pig, you better believe that what's going to happen is you're going to have a whole bunch of people that are throwing money at you, like, George Zimmerman with Trayvon Martin was killed, throwing money, all in the name of the Second Amendment. And the NRA is going to come out and they'll be throwing money. Your legal fees will be taken care of. You're not going to go into that fight all by yourself if it goes down, because of the fact that, this is affecting a lot of people who went out and bought the SIG brace. So they'll be like, oh, what's your PayPal? Let me send you some money. I mean, please, man, people have come together and put money forward for even stupider causes. Okay. And this, for the gun community, if the gun community doesn't do it, I'd be very surprised. But trust me, if somebody gets arrested, it's going to be all over the NRA ILA site. It'll be, such and such, their name will be all over the place. Are they going to court? Oh, they're being charged for 10 years. And then what's going to happen is that, the NFA laws are going to be really challenged. People are going to, they're going to do the whole Shannon Allen thing. Like they did in New Jersey with the, Jersey doesn't recognize anybody else's permits. And it made New Jersey look really stupid because they vigorously prosecuted Shannon Allen while letting, what's his name? Is it Ray Rice? Letting him go for, beating his wife in the elevator. Okay, made them look stupid. It made them look foolish. Now, maybe some of the people at the ATF, they don't see this right now. They're like, oh, good, we scared them off. But if this were to go to court, then, I mean, everything would come into question. The 16-inch barrel would come into question. The automatic weapons would come into question. Some of the other laws, grenade launchers, for God's sakes. I mean, just a whole bunch of stuff would come in. But, truth be told, people just want to be able to have a short barrel rifle because short barrel rifle is ideal for CQB and home protection. Okay, everybody knows it's unwieldy to walk around a corner with, a shotgun barrel sticking out from the corner or a 20-inch rifle barrel sticking out from the corner. People would like to have something more compact, like the new CZ Scorpion with, basically, a regular stock on it, a perfect size, And, to a degree, I can kind of understand NFA laws, because the idea is just basically, we don't want you all to be better equipped than we are, which ironically undermines the very premise of the Second Amendment in the first place. The government already has tanks and, helicopters and aircraft carriers and all that other stuff. And, if the Second Amendment was meant so that the people can be armed in order to defend themselves against a tyrannical government, then basically all of these laws, are unconstitutional, including, the ban on, not the ban, but the limitation on fully automatic weapons. I mean, notice that none of these things have been banned. They can't ban it because it would be unconstitutional. But what they can do is they can regulate it. And that's the way that they get around trying to, that's the way they get around trying to, get these laws, or get these, restrictions in place that would otherwise be unconstitutional if they were an outright ban. But there becomes a point where if you restrict something so much that now it's unconstitutional, and this is why I believe magazine bans or magazine limitations, not magazine bans, magazine limitations are unconstitutional. Because if the whole premise of the Second Amendment is so that people can defend themselves against a tyrannical government, and the rifle is, your best bet to defense, well, if you reduce the capacity down to 10 rounds or down to 5 rounds, I mean, you could go all the way down to 1 round and say, hey, you have the right to bear arms, but you only have 1 bullet. You see what I'm saying? You could only use Mosin Nagant's, right to bear arms. And I'm saying if somebody really wanted to try to interpret it like that, they could. But I think people have enough common sense, even people in the government, to recognize that would undermine the Second Amendment, completely. It's almost like saying, you can drive, we're giving you a license to drive, but it's illegal to have cars, or it's illegal to put gas in your car, or it's illegal to have tires. But you can drive. It's legal to drive, but we just make the things that you would need in order to drive illegal. So that way you kind of sidestep a flat-out ban on cars, because a flat-out ban on cars would be unconstitutional. You get what I'm saying? So, a lot of these NFA laws, seriously speaking, are unconstitutional. Magazine bans are unconstitutional. And the anti-gunners, they run around with the idea that, it's about, the public safety and all that. That's what they do. That is what they do. And these things are going to eventually have to be challenged, and, somebody's going to have to be the guinea pig if they expect to challenge them. I mean, hey, I'm all for, the NRA making up a person, and, who's going to go and the NRA's already got their lawyers lined up and everything. And, they have conversations with SIG on how we're going to do this. SIG throws their lawyers in there too. I mean, if they really wanted to challenge it, they could challenge it. Maybe somebody will come up with a class action lawsuit. It could be a whole bunch of stuff that could be done, in order to challenge it. But, from what I've seen from the gun community, everybody's kind of, going into bitch mode. They're like, oh my God, they wrote a letter. Oh, hide your stocks. And I'm like, oh gosh. I'm like, it's an opinion letter. And I'm telling you, it's not going to hold up in the court of law. Even though, I'm not a lawyer, I can't give legal advice, but I'm saying it's, I mean, if you even remotely take a law class, or a criminal justice class, or anything that has criminal law, whatever, if you'll understand the judiciary system enough to recognize that, this shit isn't going to hold up in court, even if it went to court. Sir, did you modify the SIG pistol that you bought online? Didn't touch it. It came like that, and that's what it is. So why is the ATF claiming that you have broken NFA laws? Because I shouldered it. Is there a law against shouldering a firearm or holding it a certain way? No. Case dismissed. I'm telling you that, these agencies that have been put in place, they do not have the power to enact laws. Okay, they're regulatory commissions. That's they can only enforce the laws that are already on the book, and there is no law saying you can't shoulder even the buffer tube. So what makes you think that it's going to be legal for them to say that you can't shoulder the SIG brace stock. Anyway, that's my video. New Jersey gun laws out.